From the first 2 weeks of eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro competition, we've been to two of the toughest tracks to master on the circuit. From the high banks of Daytona International Speedway to the tight 1 mile confines of the Rock. These drivers have been tested in ways already that many would hope not to have been. And now, as we head into week number 3, or round number 3, of eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, a new challenge awaits tonight in South Florida. From the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway, it is game on once again as drivers will compete and try to work their way on the road to a possible share of $300,000. This is the Road to Pro, and it starts right now on Podium Esports. Good evening, race fans, and welcome to coverage of the top split of the third round of eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro action from the sunny confines of the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. Jacob Seelman for Podium Esports with our producer Ryan Bauer in the production trailer punching buttons as we get set to roll through another night of action and get set to test a full field on this 1.5 mile sun-drenched oval, and already working through qualifying for tonight's top split of action. A lot to get done and a short time to do it in, and we are very much looking forward to seeing exactly how things go on as we go. Hope to be joined in the booth shortly by Ryan Kent Jr. to help on the call this evening, but for now we will go ahead and take an overhead look at the Homestead Miami Speedway. Of course, almost as southern in Florida as you can get. This 1.5 mile oval provides plenty of multi-groove racing and should allow for the tough trucks of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro to go 2 and sometimes 3 wide over the course of the night. Track facts for this 1.5 miles, 1.5 miles of pavement. It also has a 2.21 mile road course on the property, 1,760 feet down both the front stretch and the back stretch, 18 to 20 degrees of banking in the corners, variable banking through both turns 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, down to a very flat 3 degrees of banking on the front and back straightaways. 55 feet wide, so as we mentioned, you'll go sometimes 2 and 3 wide around this racetrack, and before too long we will see, I believe, 34 drivers in total ready to take to the track here in Miami for what's going to be 201 miles of action, 134 laps here this evening. Qualifying almost wrapping up. Currently the 5 of Steven Wilson, a storyline from 1 round ago, who had the charge through the field and looked like he might have a shot to win off some strategy. Currently Steven Wilson on the pole over Cody Bias, Derek Bordeaux, Daniel Roper, and Marcus Ruckman, the remainder of the top 5. Couple of trucks left to qualify. This 5-minute session just about to come to an end, and does come to an end with Steven Wilson on the pole. So in just a moment we will get trucks gridded up and give you a look down the starting lineup for tonight's 200-mile Road to Pro event here in Miami. And on the pole in truck number 5, Steven Wilson going to help us lead the field to the green flag. Cody Bias going to join him on the outside of the front row. Derek Bordeaux starting from the inside of row number 2. Daniel Roper, the heartbreak story from 2 weeks ago. He will roll off from 4th after leading the most laps. Marcus Ruckman in 5th. Donovan Strauss rolling off from the 6th spot. Jarrett Liebert 7th. Alan Bowes from the 8th position. Andrew Freenage from 9th. Derek Justice completing the top 10. Row 6 finds Daytona winner Jordy Lopez alongside Brandon McKissick. Row number 7, Jacob Hall and Ryan Doucette, the Rockingham winner. Brian Blackford rolls from 15th alongside Blake Bryant with Casey Tucker and Carson Hocevar on row number 9. Brian LaPrade and Braden Boulos completing row 10. Dylan Rafferty and Patrick Patrick Mallett in row 11, Dylan Jones, Seth DeMerchant in row number 12, Brad Mahar, Justin Trombley in row 13, Garrett Maines, Blake McCandless in row number 14, Daniel Williamson, Devin Curl, row 15, Ryan Kuhn, Will Norton, Trayton Lapsevich, and James Milbachler. The rest of the field, 34 strong, as we close in on the start, waiting for a few trucks more to get gridded up before we go green. So all is quiet, but it will not be quiet for long. The 5 and the 14 of Wilson and Bias on the front row, getting ready to come to the green flag. Well, not yet, but we'll have one pace lap, and then we'll go green as the pace car starts to roll everybody off the exit of the pit lane. And Cody Bias, a driver, as we get set to take the green tonight, who looking for a bit of redemption and has had a couple of fast trucks these first 2 rounds of Road to Pro and has not been able to bring home a victory as of yet. He will fly the Cessna colors tonight and look to right that ship. But Steven Wilson, the storyline from Rockingham, going to try to do the same. A strategy call got him a shot at a win, wasn't able to convert, and he will now start from pole in an opportunity, hopefully, to do just that. Field already working into turn number 3. And we're moments away from 201 miles of action. Glad that you're with us on Podium Esports. As the field going to work off the exit of turn number 4. Pace car going to dive to pit road. Green flag goes in the air. And underway we go from Homestead Miami Speedway. Field side by side down to turns 1 and 2. As the early advantage to Steven Wilson, he'll slide down the racetrack and clear Cody Bias before they get to the exit of turn number 2. So Wilson leading them down the back straightaway for the first time as they're 2 and 3 wide behind. Top 3 goes single file though. First battle for position for 4th between Marcus Ruckman and Daniel Roper. Roper on the outside working off turn number 4. They remain side by side at the end of lap number 1. Steven Wilson leads it. Cody Bias second. Still side by side for 4th as they head back into turn number 1. Roper trying to hang on that outside lane, but Marcus Ruckman with the advantage, and I believe gonna have the spot as they work down the back straightaway. It was tight sliding across the nose of the 12. Now the 51 of Donovan Strauss to the inside of the racetrack as he'll take a position from the 12 of Roper as well, coming around to complete lap number 2. Side by side behind them, that's about 8th, 9th place back around Jarrett Liebert, Andrew Freenage. So Freenage going to give up a spot actually to the 44 rather of Jordy Lopez. Headed for turn number 3. Freenage now going to have to hold off or try to hold off the 17 of Alan Bose. Bose drawing a beeline on the back bumper of Freenage's number 13. But up front, it's Cody Bias who has slid to the race lead. Bias now out in front at the end of lap number 3, making the pass last time by the 5 of Steven Wilson. So they work lap number 4. Bias now out in front with the Cessna colors. Side by side for 3rd as Marcus Ruckman's on the move. Ruckman down to the inside of the Derek Bordeaux machine. Ruckman trying to advance early. Bordeaux to the outside. They nearly come together off the exit of turn number 4. Still side by side as they head back to turn number 1. Locked in that battle for 3rd, and Donovan Strauss in this mix as well.
I'm with you now, Jacob. It's sorry to see that Ryan's having some difficulties. We've got quite the battle here at the front of the field. These guys are doing a really good job of giving each other room and space. You can see we do have 130 laps to go here, Jacob, and just really excited to see how this race is going to shake down tonight with the different strategies and everything.
It is, and I'll toss that in there. Welcome from down in the production trailer to our man punching the buttons, Ryan Bauer. Cody Bias has started to open up a little bit of a gap, about a car length and a half, make it 2 car lengths now, back from second place Steven Wilson to Marcus Ruckman. But the man on the charge early, Bauer, is the Jordy Lopez machine. The 44 started inside of row number 6. He's already worked his way up to the 7th spot, our Daytona winner.
Not surprised by that at all, Jacob. Jordy Lopez is known to get the job done when he needs to do that. We saw that at Daytona. We saw him have some bad luck at the Rock, but, having raced at that track quite a bit over 2K3 over the years, and here on iRacing, they really did a good job of modeling how bumpy that track is now that we've seen the trucks racing there and everything lately. So we'll see if Jordy can bounce back tonight and put on the form that he displayed at Daytona in the round 1 of the season.
He's certainly running well so far. Now picks off 1 more spot, has jumped up to the 6th spot ahead of Daniel Roper. And I called Roper the heartbreak kid in the open, Ryan Bauer, because, well, quite frankly, he had the dominant truck at Rockingham 2 weeks ago and left with nothing to show for it, running 7th right now. He is the man that I think we should all be watching as this race goes on. But Jordy Lopez continuing to be on the move, makes an easy pass of Derek Bordeaux. He's up to the top 5.
Yeah, gotta be happy about how quick he's moved up. That's 6 spots already, guys. Coming to finish our 8th lap here. Not surprised to see that out of Lopez. We'll see if he can continue to march his way to the front, as it looks like the battle at the front's really heating up, Jacob.
Battle at the front has been hot and heavy from the drop of the green flag. Steven Wilson started with it. Cody Bias took it. Now it's about to be 4 trucks under a blanket. Marcus Ruckman has caught the front runners. Donovan Strauss has caught the front runners, and Jordy Lopez is closing in. Maybe make it 5 trucks battling for this lead here as they work down the back straight.
Yeah, 4 trucks under a blanket going down into turn 3. Looks like the guys are still trying to carry as much speed as they can while keeping it as low as they can. We'll see as the run goes on, will anybody move up and take advantage of the progressive banking we have here at the Homestead Miami Speedway, as that can help you save that right front tire, which is going to be ever more precious as we go further into this race and the track rubbers up.
I promise you we're going to talk about tires a lot during this race tonight, and one of those situations where we know Miami's a tire eater, and it could come down to a game if we get some cautions late in the going. It could come down, Bauer, to a situation of who has the freshest tires, who gambles and takes their tires the latest, but still gives them enough time to get to the front. Battles on for the runner-up spot. Donovan Strauss, or rather the 3rd spot. Donovan Strauss just delivered a shot to the back of the 8 of Marcus Ruckman, and it didn't work. It actually squirreled up that 51, but boy, Strauss, I think, is starting to get a little impatient.
Keep in mind, too, guys, we do have 3 green-white checkers in this series, so it's going to come down to short run speed, I really have a feeling, as we'll see guys getting more and more impatient as you see those laps tick down further and further through we got the race.
11 laps already complete. It's been nice and green early on. Cody Bias leads it. Steven Wilson 2nd. Marcus Ruckman 3rd. Donovan Strauss 4th. Jordy Lopez in 5th. Daniel Roper, Derek Bordeaux, Jarrett Liebert, Andrew Freenage, Alan Bowes, the remainder of the top 10 as it sits. 11 laps in the books. We're going 134, so that's one of the things that I really look at this, Bauer, and say 201 miles. This is one of the longer races we'll see this season, not from a mileage standpoint per se, but because these laps are 31, 32, 33 seconds when you go through a green flag run. From a time standpoint, this is a long race, as we see Steven Wilson going for the lead down towards turn 1. Can't make it work.
Yeah, you're right about that. Anytime you've got the longer lap times, looking at the different tracks in the series, this is almost double the lap time that we had last week at Rockingham. So it's definitely going to take longer. May not be, like you said, more miles per se compared to Daytona or other races that we'll see throughout the rest of the season. But yeah, anytime you've got that big lap time, especially if you have cautions and stuff too as well, because the bigger track here at Homestead, the caution laps do take quite a bit longer as well.
Trouble for James Milbachler, who it looks like has fallen out of the sim for now. We'll have to see if he can get back in the session at some point. He had qualified, or was not able to post a qualifying time, started last on the grid, now showing 3 laps down in 34th. So a tough break for Milbachler, who had already had a tough night to start. These front 5, though, Bias, Wilson, Ruckman, Strauss, Lopez, they are really they're trying to mix it up. up. The problem is nobody can go anywhere because nobody can get that run to get clear of the truck in front of them. Everybody's pretty tightly packed, Bauer. I think as much as we think of it as a dirt move, what we're seeing may lead to the slide maneuver, the slide job maneuver, just to be able to make passes. It almost seems like you're going to really have to sail it in on the bottom of the racetrack and really have that center of the corner speed be faster than somebody in order to make the move.
Yeah, it's going to come down to aggression, and hopefully it won't lead to calamity, but especially I think if we have a late race restart, you're going to see guys send it down on the inside and do everything they can to get up and get that momentum, because that run off turn 2 on a restart is very, very important. Any momentum lost there is going to be detrimental all the way back around to turn 1.
Let's shuffle back to about 16th place, the 29, Dylan Jones, who has made a nice move early on. And Dylan Bauer, we know he's had no shortage of bad luck, but has advanced nicely. Started in the back third of the pack, was running 23rd at the green flag. He's worked his way up to 6th.
Yeah, there's a bit of a server issue there, guys. We're going to have the custom paint jobs loaded here for you in just a minute. Want to give a shout out to Trade and Paints for getting everything fixed up for us. But yeah, Dylan Jones up to 16th. Looks like he's got all 4 fenders on that thing, a clean piece so far, Jacob. And I know that can be hard to do at this track, especially on the restarts when everybody's so close together. So far, so good for Dylan Jones.
And I believe after a couple of slight work-throughs on our end as well, we have Ryan Kent officially as the 3rd member of our broadcast crew tonight out of Indiana. And I know we were working through a few things at the very start of this race, Ryan, but glad to have you on board for this 3rd round of Road to Pro. And I know we were talking about tires a couple of minutes ago, and I think we all know Homestead, Miami, tires are going to be the premium the deeper we get into this 200-mile race.
Yeah, and especially here early on, obviously this is a plenty long race, just working past about, 10% of the way into this race, and guys are now starting to get a feel of how does my truck feel when fuel runs out of it, when tires start to go away a little bit. They're starting to see some guys move around a little bit. You talked about variable banking, something that makes Homestead certainly unique on the NASCAR schedule, and here is round 3 of the NASCAR Road to Pro Series. So as guys start to work their way around, they figure out where their truck's good, where their truck's bad, maybe what lines they prefer. And you talked about short run speed, Ryan Bauer, finding that potential last 10, 15 laps, or maybe even just a couple laps where that truck's going to be good, especially to set yourself up for the last 10, 20% of this race.
I'm noticing deeper in the order, Bauer. Sorry to cut you off there, but early trouble for one of the drivers that we have been looking at since the very beginning of this Road to Pro season, but Briar LaPrade, Patriot Briar, for those who know him on Twitch, in the 19, the Ledford Billiard Supply machine. We've thought he was going to be a contender the first 3 weeks, and he was at Daytona, but it looks like early troubles for him here. Not sure if he had some sort of an issue and had to make an early pit stop or what the problem is, but he started 19th and has dropped already 3 laps off the pace, very slow in the outside lane, running 33rd.
Yeah, we hate to see that for Briar. Just it looks like another case of bad luck. He's got some pretty bad right front damage on that thing, it looks like, too, as well. Oh, well, maybe not. Yeah, he does have some right front fender damage in front of the tire. So it's such an aero-dependent track here at Homestead, guys, and I think that's definitely going to be detrimental, at least till he can get it fixed up on the pit stop.
Not just an aero-dependent track, Ryan Kent, but aero-dependent machines as well. These trucks are so boxy, they punch such a big hole in the air that any amount of damage, and you're going to be hurting for the entire... So we'll shuffle back up front. Battle is on for the 2nd position, rather. Working lap 22. Steven Wilson had it, but Donovan Strauss trying to take it away. Strauss in the 51 moves to the 2 spot, trying to bring Ryan Bauer, Jordy Lopez along with him in the 44.
Yeah, we see a hot side-by-side battle here. Looks like that 5 truck working the high side. You see him working the wheel back to the right. Getting a little bit loose center off there, but carrying that momentum down the straightaway. Doesn't look like he lost too much there, so we'll keep an eye on this battle as it's going to be getting further and further into the run. These guys are going to have a hard time keeping their pieces under them, so we'll have to see if these guys can keep it clean as we get further into the run, hoping tire strategy will come into play.
And And Ryan Kent, we're seeing the clothesline effect here at Homestead, Miami. Now that outside lane not really coming in well. We just saw it. Steven Wilson, who was second not a lap and a half ago, has now dropped all the way to fifth and may get ready to lose a couple more spots as the 8 of Marcus Ruckman looks to the inside.
It looks so far, Jacob, assuming that a lot of drivers are experimenting, figuring out exactly where their truck works, where it doesn't work. We talked about a lot of different lines, and some guys are figuring out, hey, does my setup work on the top of the track, using that Kyle Larson, that Jack Hodenshield line up there right up next to that lightly blue-painted wall here at Homestead Miami Speedway. For a couple of guys, like you saw, not working out early, not working out well so far here as we're working on lap number 24.
And for any that just raised an eyebrow, Kent is a dirt guy, so any Larson and Bell references are absolutely acceptable for the kid from, what are we calling it, Central?
Yeah, yep, right around racing capital of the world here in outside Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Side by side now, we're continuing to see Steven Wilson drop back in a big way. He's on the verge of falling outside the top 10, has settled in a battle with Jarrett Liebert. So the 5 and 5 of Wilson and Liebert going wheel to wheel for position. Liebert with the momentum on the top side, I think, is going to hold the position at the line. 25 laps complete as Steven Wilson has dropped now from the pole to 8th place. And I just continue to watch Cody Bias, Ryan Bauer. You have to wonder if he's really showing everything he's got right now, or if he's just running as fast as he needs to in order to get the job done.
I think early on in the race, when the track doesn't have a lot of rubber in it, it's going to be really hard on that right front tire. I think you're absolutely right about that. He's probably just driving as hard as he needs to here. I know, running a lot in the truck series myself, there's a lot of different things you can do to help save that right front tire, but there's nothing like having track position and clean air to at least start your night out well.
Battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th remains ongoing. The 51 of Donovan Strauss has it. The 44 of Jordy Lopez and the 13 of Andrew Freenage, they both want it. 26 laps complete already of 134. So we're already closing in on the 50-mile mark, the 1/4 distance mark of tonight's eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro event from Homestead Miami Speedway. If you're just joining us, welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the top split of eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro. And Ryan Bauer, I guess we should probably explain, if there's somebody who may be seeing Road to Pro for the first time, the splits are done by iRating. So these are the top iRating of all the, 300, 400, 500 drivers. We don't know exactly how many drivers were registered for this week's splits, but anywhere from probably 300 to 500 drivers competing over each week of Road to Pro, and these are the 34 highest iRatings of the bunch.
Yeah, so basically all the drivers that want to sign up for this race for Road to Pro, which is one race every other week, opposite of what the Coke Series runs in their schedule. So what you'll see is 400 or 500 guys sign up for this one race, and then the top 34 is who you see on your screen tonight. So starting with the #1 iRating of all drivers signed up, back through the top 34 of all those drivers. That's what you see tonight. So this is the top of the line in talent, the cream of the crop of the field, and it's definitely going to be an exciting race tonight. As again, we still see a battle here at the front, as it looks like Roper's got a round bias now for that top position.
Indeed, just as we started talking about some of the front runners, Daniel Roper with a power move on lap number 30 is going to go to the race lead off of turn number 2. So move Roper to the inside and to the point past Cody Bias, and he will become the 3rd different leader of this event as they work through 3 and 4. 30 laps complete, 45 miles at the line, and I don't want to say anybody's gotten comfortable out front, Ryan Kent, but at the same time, I feel like there's a few of these guys that have just settled in maybe where they're running for the moment and are kind of waiting to see how this long run plays out. It's rare that we get a 30 or 35 lap run to open a race here on the Road to Pro, but this is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, so far it's been all clean and green. The legendary Mel Kenyon told me one time when I was driving one of those pavement midgets that sometimes the greatest learning tool for a driver is to simply follow somebody who's potentially faster than you to see exactly where you're better, maybe where you're worse in a couple of spots. I feel like a lot of drivers right now just not only getting a feel for their car, but getting a feel for their competition as well, figuring out where am I making time up on this guy, where am I losing time to that guy, just figuring out exactly how their truck works works out here before we get into some pit stops.
And see, Ryan Bauer, that's exactly what I was going to make the point, as we see a battle for third. Jordy Lopez to the inside of Cody Bias, and now Bias the one starting to get kicked back on that clothesline. On the outside a little bit as there's contact. Donovan Strauss got into Jordy Lopez, and they're 3 wide for position down the back straightaway. They're going to want to settle that out.
Yeah, you got to think that the 14 of Bias, our early leader, must have been running harder than we thought, Jacob, and that's definitely costing him now. He's back in that dirty air now that he's not out front, getting that extra front downforce, and I think having a little bit of extra wear on those tires coupled with that dirty air is going to make it difficult for him to maintain that track position. So we'll see now that we've seen 3 wide here in the last lap, if maybe things can settle down, as we've got to be getting closer and closer to that first green flag pit stop.
That's what I was going to ask you, too, because it is Homestead, Miami. It is highly unlikely that we're going to see them run an entire tank of fuel out, you would think. Tires are simply just that valuable.
Yeah, I think maybe 15 more laps tops. I would say 50 laps would be a good place to break it up. And then you got to anticipate having a late race restart. As we see one of the guys get into the wall there coming into turn 3. Not sure which driver that was. Looks like that's the Team Jordan machine there. Looks like he's able to keep rolling on the top. Did a nice job of keeping it up there in the wall and not affecting anybody else in that corner.
So we were talking about iRating earlier, and it looks like that may have been not the Doucette machine. We'll have to go back and look at the replay there in a minute, but we were talking about iRating earlier, and actually just before it got crazy up front again, I had my eyes drawn to the driver that does have the highest iRating in this Road to Pro Top Split event tonight, who has been a little bit slow, shall we say, Bauer, to move forward. Seth DeMerchant, the 57, his familiar number. I think I would have expected more from him, but qualified 24th, not where we're used to seeing him, and he's only gotten to 18th right now.
Yeah, track position, I think, is his issue. Like we talked about, being stuck in dirty air, it's really hard to make your way forward as the run goes on. You probably saw him gain those 6 positions right at the beginning of the run, and now that he's in that dirty air with those worn tires, he really can't do much but maintain his track position here. Any effort he makes to go forward is just going to be frivolous and result in him dropping further and further like a rock.
And as these cars and as tires start to wear, track does in a theory start to get a little bit more narrow. Obviously, when you're on fresh tires, you can put your truck in a couple more spots, and as we're now later on into a run inside 100 laps to go, the track in theory starts to slim down a little bit. Passing opportunities starting to look a little more grim.
Yeah, the driver looking for a passing opportunity right now as we come to the line for lap 37 is the 13 of Andrew Freenage, who is pressuring Daniel Roper for the race lead down into turns 1 and 2. Freenage was within a truck length as they came to the line that time by a little bit of lap traffic. The Briar LaPrade machine had everybody shuffled for a brief moment. LaPrade has now gotten to the bottom of the racetrack to allow all the leaders through on the outside, but Kent, Freenage is there and maybe pushing a little bit harder late in the run because he sat there kind of in 3rd, 4th place, and it looked like was doing a pretty decent job of conserving his tires early in the run.
Yeah, you talked about how big of an aero effect that these trucks have. Punches such a big hole in the air that it changes up passing opportunities, and that's something the guys are really able to get throughout the course of the week with practice and building up to kind of this main event, if you will, this feature event. And as runs start to go on, fuel starts to run away, and then tires change. Things that you learned in those first 10 laps, this is where you're starting to be able to use some of those little tools and tricks up your sleeve that you learned early on in the run here today.
Ryan Bauer, speaking of tricks up the sleeve and potential strategy calls, we talked about fuel versus tires and the value of both earlier on in this run. If we really wanted to push it, how far can these drivers go on a tank of fuel, and how much sooner than that would you want to be pitting for tires if it were you?
I'm going to say, based on past experience, it's about 60 laps on a full tank of fuel. But as we now have 40 laps on these tires, I think these guys have got to be wanting to get to pit road here. So we'll take a look back around the 7th position or so. Keep an eye on those guys. We may see somebody short pit here and try and take advantage of that faster tires, because these guys now have fallen off a full 1.5 seconds, Jacob, from what they were running at the start of the race.
One driver who has not fallen off, though, is Andrew Freenage, who just made the inside sweep in turns 1 and 2 on lap 41. Move Freenage to the race lead, dropped Roper back to second, and we kept talking about our Daytona winner, Jordi Lopez, in third now, 11th to third, and targeting the top 2. He's closed in Ryan Kent in turns 1 and 2.
Yes, he has, and we've talked about as your car changes, but I think some guys are starting to adapt that driving style just a little bit, figuring out how the air is going to affect their nose and where they can find some of that clean air. And he's certainly one that's been able to make some moves and is looking pretty sporty here early on as we work towards lap 50 and a potential pit stop here under green flag conditions.
42 laps going to go on the board at that time by the stripe, and suddenly what had stretched out to a rather longer line of trucks has started to compress. That accordion effect late in the run just a little bit has now at least brought the top 3 back together, and 4, 5, and 6 not that far behind. It was Jarrett Liebert who goes to the outside and makes the pass on Donovan Strauss going into turn number 3 in the battle for 4th. So move the 5 of Liebert to P4, and we talk about comers and goers all the time at Homestead, Miami, Ryan Bauer, and that's what we're seeing, especially over these long green flag runs. It's a game. Do you run hard early? Do you run hard late? And as this run stretches on, we see exactly who chose to conserve early and save a little bit for the end of this run.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the line the guys are using. You see them there still running as close to the bottom as they can as possible. I'm thinking once the track rubbers up, we'll see some line exploration. But for now, these guys are just trying to keep the... Oh, we see, here we go. Now we've got green flag pit stops taking place, guys. Leader in.
Pit stops are beginning. Andrew Freenage going to be the first one to bail out and hit pit road, along with Lopez and a couple of others. So several of the Horizon drivers on pit road here. Freenage to his box, Lopez to his box, and I think there's no question the 8, another one, also pitting in this time, the 8 of Marcus Ruckman. Ryan Kent, 4 tires and fuel when you're making green flag pit stops all the way around, no question.
Yeah, absolutely. May as well go for it to just take that amount of time, certainly those couple of seconds to put all 4 on, a little splash of fuel as well, and get yourself ready to rock and roll for potentially the rest of this race, maybe on a fuel side of things. Certainly if we see a caution, depending on when that could be, I see guys jump in for tires as well. Ryan Bauer, what's the stretch in terms of being able to roll yourself out in terms of a fuel run here? You talked about potentially get to 60. We're seeing guys pit here a little bit before lap 50. What's it going to take to maybe make this a one-stop strategy from a fuel perspective?
I would say at least 1 caution, if not 2, as we see Doucette had taken over the lead, made his way to pit road. That's going to leave Seth DeMerchant into the lead here, guys. We see Lopez there on the bottom working with those fresher tires. Really gives you an idea of the separation in speeds. You see even the guys coming off pit road have an advantage to these guys up out on the track. So I don't think these guys can one-stop it without a little help from some cautions. So we'll keep an eye on that and see if anybody tries to go with that strategy. But as you see, the separation in speed here as these guys come by on the outside with their fresher tires. DeMerchant's had enough. He's headed towards you on pit road. Wow.
That is pushing it to the limit, trying to get everything out of that pit entry. You got to be concerned, though, watching that, Ryan Kent, don't you, about a potential speeding penalty for DeMerchant?
Yeah, he was definitely right on there, and I know certainly from experience that there's a very bold and thick line, and I'm not sure if he quite stepped over that right there, but it was definitely going to be close. We'll see here shortly if he was able to get it slowed down here in time, as DeMerchant looks like he's going to head for pit road.
So we actually saw it, Ryan Bauer, a couple laps ago, I think, on the pit sequence that the 44 of Jordi Lopez actually had a very quick stop and beat the 13 of Freenage off pit road. And when this cycles through, Jordi Lopez is going to be the race.
Yeah, we got a nice look there at the 18 coming in hot, guys. he's definitely doing everything he can to get the most out of that pit entry. So we'll keep an eye on that 18, see if he's able to leapfrog anybody. As we pick up Lopez now, he's up to his scoring cycling around. He's now cycled up to the lead. Last lap, a 32 flat. Also the 13 similar lap times. You really see the difference, though, is it was a full 1.7 seconds in difference with the fresher tires.
And see, this, this is where what you get out of pit entry and pit exit can be so vital, and where Jordi Lopez made up most of that time was on pit exit. He was very, very quick on the pit exit compared to the 13 of Freenage. Just had a little bit more get up and go. And as we come to the end of lap 49, it is a 1.4 second gap between Jordi Lopez, the new race leader, and Andrew Freenage in second. Let's go run you down through the top 10 after pit stops. Jarrett Liebert now third, Daniel Roper fourth, Donovan Strauss in fifth, Jacob Hall sixth, Ryan Doucette seventh, eighth to Marcus Ruckman, ninth Dylan Jones, and 10th to Derek Justice as it sits. Nice run for Blake McCandless going so far, the driver who had a spin late in the Rockingham Road to Pro event, Ryan Bauer, 2 weeks ago. 28th up to 15th now through that first round of pit stops, so he's had it solid so far.
Yeah, that's got to be our biggest mover. As you can see, he's got a clean piece still. That's up 13 spots. That's the biggest number I've seen so far. So not surprised with the talent level that young man has in that 34 machine. So we'll keep an eye on him as the night goes on, as we see him tucked up behind the 5 here headed into turn 3.
Blake, always fun to watch, also fun to listen to as we see him both here occasionally in the Podium Esports broadcast booth, as well as the Speed Shift TV broadcast booth. So multi-talented for Blake McCandless, as he is pressuring the 5 of Steven Wilson and makes the pass for the 14th position. The unique paint scheme on the McCandless truck with the 66 number on the rear quarter panel, as opposed to the traditional place on the side of the driver's door. 52 laps complete, and since I have the eyes and ears to the producer tonight, I'm going to have Ryan Bauer punch a couple of buttons as we come around to complete lap 52, and we'll see if we can't give you some sights and sounds here on Podium Esports from Road to Pro at Homestead, Miami. Some fun battles going on right now around the racetrack. Ryan Bauer, the big loser in my eyes on that round of green flag pit stops. Cody Bias, who started up front on the front row, led this race early. He's dropped back all the way into a battle for 13th, getting heavy pressure from McCandless right now.
Yeah, I don't know if he had an issue with his pit stop. I know I saw a couple guys slide through their box there. Got to assume he definitely had an issue. We don't know if it was coming or going to pit road, but definitely keep that in mind as the race goes on. That's definitely going to shake up his confidence if he has to do that pit cycle again, Jacob.
Ryan Kent, 55 laps in. We know that the drivers are feeling better right now because they're on a relatively fresh set of virtual tires, and the question that we ask ourselves is, how long before they're screaming, "I want tires"?
We keep an eye on the lap times, and judging on that, while we were on board with McCandless, he actually ran his fastest lap of the race. So
okay, so Blake's basically proving us wrong that it's not time for tires yet.
Yeah, he's digging full send. This is the time when you've got to try and make your moves when you have that fresh rubber. So we see Lopez out to 2-second advantage here on the 13, and quite the battle heating up as Jarrett Liebert, a new face, into the top 5.
Yeah, Liebert's moved up to the 3rd position. Actually, I think had cracked the top 5 just before the first round of pit stops. Ryan Kent, it's hard to miss that multicolored splash and go number 5 for Liebert, but he has clawed his way up to the 3 position, and really, I think we're starting to see this battle for 2nd compress a little bit because Andrew Freenage has fallen.
Yeah, that is a certainly very brightly colored number 27, something that easily sticks out under the bright lights here at virtual Homestead Miami Speedway as you start to see him try to track down Drew Freenage, who last week finished 18th back at Rockingham. Certainly looking for a little bit of redemption. Your top 3 runners right now with Lopez showing the way out front. Talked about Liebert. A guy who's kind of new on the scene, the new kid on the block, if you will, starting to run pretty well up front, and that about every color of the rainbow. Car number 27 out front for him.
So Jordi Lopez leading it in the 44 by 1.9 seconds as I'm almost hesitant to say we've run 59 laps green flag because the commentator's curse would say that there's going to be a caution now that I've actually said that. But so far, clean and green all the way through as we, believe it or not, are just a handful of laps away from the halfway point in tonight's event at Homestead Miami Speedway. It's Lopez that leads it, Freenage 2nd, Jarrett Liebert 3rd, Donovan Strauss continuing to sit 4th, and Daniel Roper in 5th. 6th to Jacob Hall, a name that we really haven't called all that much yet tonight. 7th, Ryan Doucette, our Rockingham winner who worked his way up through pit stops. 8th to Alan Bowes, Dylan Jones, Derek Justice, the rest of the top 10. And Ryan Bauer, Ryan Doucette. We've got all the Ryans going right now. We've got you, we've got Ryan Kent, we've got Ryan Doucette, who's worked his way from 14th to 7th and continuing a roll of momentum between Road to Pro and the Rowdy Energy Super Select Series that we've seen him run with the Super Late Model the last couple of weeks. Doucette has had a tremendous amount of momentum and doing a nice job here.
Yeah, we talk about seat time being important, and when you're hot, you're hot. And he's been tearing it up in those super late models, so not surprised to see him do well here again after his win last week at Rockingham. So definitely going to keep an eye on him. Track position is his issue right now. He's over 5 seconds back from our leaders, but like you said, we're just now getting close to the halfway point, so he's got plenty of time, in my opinion, to try some different strategy or maybe even catch a caution and get that precious track position back, see if he can attack that top 5.
Driver who's done a nice job of being on the attack so far, actually tied for our biggest mover, is the 29 of Dylan Jones, who has he's basically taken to running the white truck for the most part, and at the same time made it look very easy while doing so. 23rd now to 9th as the 17 of Alan Bowes falls back at least 2 positions, so Bowes will fall outside the top 10. Brandon McKissick moving forward in the 32, but Dylan Jones quietly but very smoothly moving his way forward through this second run of the race in the 29, up 14 positions from where he started. Problem is, he is 6 seconds behind race leader Jordi Lopez, whose advantage, Ryan Kent Jr., is shrinking somewhat. It was 2 seconds not 4 laps ago. Andrew Freenage has cut that down to 1.4 seconds.
Yeah, it is 1.4 and starting to close as that number 13 truck of Freenage is just in front. Lieber is right on the rear decklet of him as well. There's only a couple truck lengths between those two, so 2nd and 3rd starting to breathe down the neck of your leader as they've cut in now about 0.6 of a second into Jordi Lopez's lead, who's out front even faster that last lap. Freenage starting to tick away some laps down into the low 33, even into the 32-second lap, especially since these pit stops.
Yeah, pit stops, and we were talking about pit strategies earlier, Ryan Bauer, and based on when most of our leaders pitted, that basically told me that most, if not all, the guys are splitting this race pretty evenly into thirds. Go about 45 laps, pit for tires, go about 45 more laps, pit for tires, and then run to the...
Yeah, whenever you have this caliber and level of talent in a series like this, sometimes you got to bank on the race going green. So you kind of have to establish a strategy before you even take to the track in case that does happen. And racing in quite a bit of official series myself over the years, I can tell you, even distribution of tires and lap time is definitely your best bet, assuming a green flag run. And again, we keep an eye on Cody Bias. He's back now to the 15th position. Something else to keep in mind, too, is we're getting closer to another round of possible green flag pit stops. He's going to have to do that procedure again, and we know he's probably lost some confidence after the issues we saw him have the first round of green flag stops.
So based on my math, if we're splitting it about even into thirds, we should expect the leaders back in pit road around lap 90, maybe the 90 to 92 range, somewhere in there, or 88 to 92 range, give or take. So right now, though, we're crossing the halfway point in tonight's eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro event here at Homestead, Miami. So it's time to bring you the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation, developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing from the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, and NASCAR to the World of Outlaws, Rallycross, and more. We'll take you down the iRacing full field rundown here with 67 laps complete. Jordy Lopez leads it over Andrew Freenage. Jarrett Liebert is in third, ahead of Donovan Strauss and Daniel Roper among the top five. Ryan Doucette is sixth, Jacob Hall seventh, Brandon McKissick eighth, Dylan Jones ninth, and Marcus Ruckman in 10th. Alan Bowes rides 11th. Blake McCandless now has climbed to 12th from 28th. Stephen Wilson is 13th, 14th is Seth DeMerchant, and 15th is Cody Bias, 16th is Derek Justice, 17th Braden Boulos, 18th Derek Bordeaux, 19th Garrett Maines, 20th is Dylan Rafferty, 21st Trayton Lapsevich, Brian Blackford is 22nd, Ryan Kuhn 23rd, 24th Brad Mahar, Blake Bryant sits 25th, 26th to Patrick Mallet, Carson Hocevar 27th, Casey Tucker in 28th, Will Norton in 29th, the last truck on the lead lap, and Devin Curl in 30th. Daniel Williamson is 31st, Briar LaPrade 32nd, 14 laps down, Justin Trombley in 33rd, and James Milbachler out of this race in the 34th position. This concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, and with more than 80,000 drivers on the service and more than 80 laser scanned tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information and to join in on the fun, visit iRacing.com today. And I believe, Ryan Bauer, if I'm not mistaken, that number has climbed quite a bit. Have we officially cracked six figures as far as those registered on the sim at this point?
Yeah, we have officially cracked the 100,000 active users mark, and actually, glad you mentioned that. That's something I wanted to look into tonight to see where we're at. It's very exciting to see such a growth in this community. I know it's nice to be able to turn in on TV, even on Sundays, and watch some racing. It just makes you feel normal again. So I know that a lot of people are seeing iRacing for the first time that didn't even know about it. I know I talk to people every day that say, what is sim racing? What is iRacing? And, I tell them to go on YouTube and type in iRacing and just start watching it. And they really get an idea quickly of how authentic this is. We talk to the guys like Jimmy Johnson on Sundays. They talk about how the feel is there. Everything that that they're experiencing in the race car. Even people like Blake Cook have told me they get more pumped up, Jacob Seelman, for an iRacing race than they do when they strap in a real race car.
That's interesting to think about, isn't it, from some of these drivers who have raced for years in real-life scenarios, particularly a Blake Cook. That's one that I don't know if I would have expected that name when you made that comment. Ryan Kent, 73 laps in. What are your impressions as far as how this race is playing out? I feel like if we don't get a caution soon, it's more likely than not that we could feasibly go green to the end here.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's been knock on wood, clean and green to this point as we work on lap number 74. We've started to see some guys that have fallen off, started to see some guys that have been able to figure out, what their truck's doing in lines. And I think one of those big ones has been Donovan Strauss. He's been able to get himself up to the second spot. Liebert now runs in third, and Freenage has fallen back a couple spots to fourth, with still Daniel Roper rounding out your top five. Jordy Lopez right now working with about a 1 and 3/10 second lead. Guys, as we approach this second set of pit stops, the mindset might change a little bit. Do they try to push this second set of tires before they get their third? Do they try to short pit it and then maybe hope for another caution in there to maybe pit with 20 laps to go? As we work on lap number 75 of 134 here at Homestead Miami Speedway.
That's definitely something to keep in mind. There's going to be somebody running somewhere in the top 10 that's going to try that strategy. It's just bound to happen. You can't bank on a caution, but that's going to be somebody like, let's just pick an example, like somebody like Jacob Hall in the number 19. Okay, his lap times are within a couple tenths of the leader, but he doesn't have the track position he needs at this point in the race, even with a good green flag stop, to be able to run in the top 5. We'll keep an eye on these guys back here in about the 7th through 10th position, as we may see them pit just even 2 or 3 laps sooner than our leaders, and that advantage that they'll get with those fresher tires will be huge. So somebody like Dylan Jones that's worked his way through the field has been very patient. You've seen his consistency pay off. He's moved all the way up from 23rd up to 9th, Jacob. So somebody back here running about 10th, I think, would be the first person I would see to pit road.
So, with about 13 laps or so before what we would expect to be green flag pit stops, and since we've been pretty much all clean and green so far, we're going to take this opportunity to go in and slide a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we should be right about on top of green flag pit stops. Quick update among the top 5 before we do step away, that Ryan Doucette has worked his way now back into the top 5, passing Andrew Freenage, who drops back to 6th. Doucette, the Rockingham winner, on the charge as we work lap 78. Jordy Lopez leads over Donovan Strauss by 1 second. Liebert, Roper, Doucette, and Freenage follow. We'll be back with more eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro action from Homestead Miami Speedway in just a moment here on Podium Esports.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Lowe. 4 wide at the stripe. Audis win here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron, drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Welcome back to coverage of Top Split for the 3rd round of eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro from the Homestead Miami Speedway, as nightfall enveloping the 1.5 miles in South Florida, and track temps coming down, but the action heating up. Jacob Seelman joined in the broadcast booth tonight by Ryan Kent Jr. and Ryan Bauer, our producer, who is also punching buttons and keeping us rolling tonight, as we are 82 of 134 laps in here in Miami. Jordy Lopez, our Daytona winner, looking to make it 2 wins in the first 3 races. Leads by about 7 car lengths over Donovan Strauss. And during the break, we were watching that, Ryan Kent, because Donovan Strauss all of a sudden has really started to chop into that lead that Jordy Lopez had built out front. And I've got to believe he saved a little bit and is now pushing those tires probably right to the limit here in the closing laps before pit stops.
Yeah, here with about 50 laps to go, Strauss has been just chopping about 1/10 of a second or so away every single lap. Just being patient, staying with a steady line, and slowly starting to close in on that number 25 truck of Jordy Lopez.
So Lopez out in front, Strauss back in the 2 spot, 44 v51, and 3rd place right now. Ryan Bauer, I continue to be impressed by the Ryan Doucette machine. Doucette has clawed his way forward in the number 16 and really put together a nice showing. He and Daniel Roper have really, I don't want to say hooked up, but I feel like they're starting to maybe draft a little bit with one another and help each other close into these top 2.
Wouldn't surprise me to be the Ryan show again tonight. You have 2 in the booth and 1 in the top 3 on the track. So definitely a lot of talent with all the Ryans involved. So glad to see Mr. Doucette continue to have success. Continues to be impressive, like you said. Last lap, a full 1/10.5 faster than the leader. So we'll see what he can do as we're getting closer to this last green flag pit stop.
And that's a big thing, isn't it, Ryan Kent, when you consider that he was a 1/10.5 faster than the leader, and we're talking about laps that are almost, 2 full seconds slower than what they started this green flag run on at this point?
Yeah, it certainly is, and your top 4 right now runs within 1.3 of a second of each other. Your top 5s within the 2 seconds of the leader. So as things start to rush later here, inside 50 laps to go, and we work towards the second round of pit stops under green flag action, as we've been entirely to this point. So far, we've been able to stay completely green, knock on wood, to this extent in the race, Jacob Seal. Lopez starting to trickle back now just a little bit, as that lead for him is now less than half a second.
Yeah, Jordy Lopez, I think, is going to have company very soon, because as quickly as Donovan Strauss is closing in on the race leader, both Ryan Doucette and Daniel Roper are closing on both of them, 3rd and 4th, faster right now than both of the top 2, as Lopez holds a 5 car length lead in that horizon. Number 44, Donovan Strauss, trying to eat into the gap down the back straightaway. It remains at about a half second as we continue to work inside of 50 laps to go. It'll be about 46 to go, and it is going to be a pit stop for the race leader right here. I said, didn't I, Ryan Bauer, 88 to 92? Yep. Hit the nail on the head. Jordy Lopez pitting at the end of lap number 88.
That goes back to that strategy we talked about of splitting the race into thirds, 2-stop strategy. It's going to be the desired effect is to be as consistent as possible with both runs on those sets of tires. So we'll see what he can do. If he continues to have the success we've seen so far tonight, would not surprise me if this goes green to see him out in front, as no short pitting took place on this run.
It's going to be interesting, actually, because I think that may have been a couple laps early, and you have to wonder, by pitting early, you've got the big advantage against guys now as far as fresher tires are concerned. But Ryan Kent, at the end of that run, when the tires hit the proverbial cliff and really fall off, could those couple of laps older tires at the end of the run be a detriment? That's the balance that you have to play in this tire game. But it's about to be a 3-car battle or 3-truck battle for the lead. Not anymore. Here comes Donovan Strauss to pit road right at the 45 to go mark.
Yeah, Strauss diving into pit lane, and Doucette and Roper just about played a little bit of bumper cars like you will at your local amusement park there for just a moment, as they about went nose to tail as they worked their way off of turn number 4. Doucette is now your leader in terms of lap times. He's been working right about the middle of the 33-second bracket the man who follows him, and Daniel Roper has been right about there the same. So they've been able to find that consistent key, and now they turn a hard left turn and come down pit road as Roper, both of them look like to light the tires up a little bit right there as they came in.
Yeah, this is the game where you have to get everything you can get, because it could be those precious tenths of a second, Ryan Bauer, that you gain on pit entry. If you time it right and don't speed, those are tenths of a second that could potentially get you positions or even win this race.
Yeah, you mentioned it, every tenth of a second is important. We're going to keep an eye on, we're going to have to go back and find our leader from before the before the green flag pit stops. As we see here, the 17 of Alan Bowes is making it to pit lane. Here we go. We pick up Jordy Lopez. Last lap, guys. Ran his fastest lap of the race. So we know it's full send at this point, 31.906. So that is definitely the fastest lap of the race for him, as he's back into the 9th position. But as we're cycling around these pit stops, it's going to be interesting to see how much time he may have gained on those guys that were following him in the top 3.
I'm looking at it right now, Ryan Kent. Lopez pitted 1 lap before Strauss did, and I'm seeing what was a half-second battle, or a half-second lead for Lopez before the pit stops, is now 3.3 seconds on my stopwatch between Lopez and Strauss. That is a lap and a half on fresher tires for the 44 of Lopez. That is a big gain, and it shows you just how much tires are worth.
But now he's got to play the game of, at this point, he's riding it out to where you think that there's going to go green to the end. Because certainly a yellow flag from the vicious wave of the man in the flag stand would change everything at this point. Lopez has now put himself up to 3rd, and we presume that here in just a couple of laps that he should take over once again as your race leader. And it looks like Jarrett Liebert will slot in at 2nd. You talked about it's about 3.3 seconds that the difference is going to be. Actually, about 3.7 seconds that the difference is going to be. And Lopez just rolled past a truck that got into the wall, barely able to avoid them. And that may bring out a caution, as there was a lot of contact with a lap truck that got into the wall off turn number 4.
Racing Groove remains clear for now, so no caution as of yet, and one driver who has stayed out through all of it. The Carolina Simworks number 40 of Carson Hocevar at lap 95, the final driver to peel off onto pit lane. That will officially hand the lead back to Jordy Lopez. And Carson Hocevar, Ryan Bauer, we know, is no stranger to strategy calls. We've seen him do it both in late models throughout the Midwest, as well as on some of the short tracks of the ARCA Menards series. Carson with a lot of real life seat time over the past couple of years, and a very, very bright star in this sport. Three seconds is the margin after pit stops between Jordy Lopez and Donovan Strauss, who rides in 2nd. And we see Carson Hocevar actually stayed out long enough. He has lost a leaders. That is the peril that staying out long and how much time you lose to fresh tires can put you in. But Hocevar will easily have the freshest tires of anybody as we get into the long run towards the end of this race. But the good news for Jordy Lopez right now is he is a 10th faster than everybody and making tracks as Hocevar gets a position on the racetrack back from the 5 of Jarrett Liebert, who sits 3rd. So Hocevar trying to work his way towards slowly getting that lap back that he has lost. Right now in the 40, Hocevar is 25th, 1 lap down. The first truck 1 lap down, mind you. So that's a strategy play that if it goes green, Carson Hocevar could actually make a lot of time late in this race if it were to work out. But that's going to be the key, Ryan Bauer. The 40 needs this to go green all the way to the end. Yeah, he is. Yeah, so I was going to say he'll be within one truck. He's got to run up and pass Jordi Lopez now to get back on the lead lap, and he's got 3 seconds to make. 100 laps complete, Ryan Kent. 34 to go, so we are into the final 50 miles of this race.
We are as we work inside 50 miles, as Jacob Seelman just said. I'm looking at lap times, and simply going off that, the last time Jordi Lopez pitted, came out, turned his fastest lap of the race to 31.905. At that point, he stayed in that lower 32-second bracket for probably about 10 laps, and he got into the middle of the 32-second bracket much faster this time. So you wonder if maybe he didn't push as hard as he came out of the pits, turned his fastest lap of the race to 31.892, and then started to settle in now as we work past lap number 100. And now he's starting to settle into the 32.5, 32.6. So maybe he's trying to save a little bit more for this time around, so that at the end, if we do stay green, that he's able to make it and able to hold on to an advantage, which right now for him is 2.9 seconds over Donovan Strauss in second.
Well, what's interesting here is this race may not be over, Ryan Bauer, because all of a sudden, Donovan Strauss has turned up the wick 2/10 last time by. He was quicker, almost another 2/10 out of it this time by. Boy, at that pace, he would catch Lopez with 15, 16 laps to go, and then we would really have a race out of this.
And I tell you who that could benefit as well is Jarrett Lieber, who he's about 0.4, half a second behind Donovan Strauss there in second. Kind of a monkey see, monkey do thing like I talked about before. He's going to figure how hard do I have to push myself to keep up with Strauss, because if he can stay remotely close to him, see where he's picking up, where he's losing time to him, that could really help him out here in the stretch as they try to chase down your leader in Jordi Lopez.
104 laps complete, 30 laps to go. Donovan Strauss playing the role of the chaser. Jordi Lopez out in front, looking to win for the second time in 3 weeks, as the big prize awaits at the end of these 14 races, Ryan Bauer. I know we haven't really talked about it as much tonight, but we will the deeper this season gets, and the top 20 in Road to Pro point standings that will get the berth in the eNASCAR iRacing Pro Series to have a shot at transferring into the 2021 Coca-Cola iRacing Series for a shot at a potential $100,000 to the champion.
Yeah, as our own James Pike likes to say, the road to $100,000 starts right here, ladies and gentlemen. So as we see Hocevar getting his lap back now, finally, that's going to give us 20. Looks like Blackford's right now the last truck on the lead lap, as we're going to have 25 trucks on the lead lap now. Now that Hocevar's moved back up, so that gap at the front now down to under 2 seconds, Jacob. So we know that Donovan is doing everything he can to try and make up that gap. Question is he going to have enough time?
But Ryan Kent, this is the balance that we talk about. You got to wonder, how hard is Donovan Strauss pushing those tires right now, and will he have anything left at the end of this run to be able to actually go up and pass Jordi Lopez?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look simply at a lap time perspective, he is he's being consistent, but man, you can tell there's some points where he starts to fall off, and over the course of just the last 5 laps, he's lost 3.5 tenths of a second. That was after running a couple 32.3s, 32.2, even just about 10 laps ago. So even for him, he's starting to feel those effects maybe even earlier. That's the thing is as he starts to run that truck down and run, especially that right front down with the line that he's running. We haven't seen guys try to run the top where maybe it can help out a little bit more in terms of your tire strategy. So as he works himself inside now down to 1.697 seconds, he's going to figure out maybe that there's some consequences to those decisions within about the last 10 laps or so.
He's coming around to take 25 laps to go when they get back to the flag stand. And the fact of the matter is 201 miles at Homestead, Miami, and we are flying Bauer through this race. I mean, I'm more impressed after 2 weeks ago when we had all the chaos and carnage that we did in Top Split to have seen this race go caution-free so far. Jarrett Liebert, by the way, back, he was running third for the longest time. He's now been bypassed by both Daniel Roper and Ryan Doucette, so we may see the tire management and the comers late in the run really start to shine here.
Yeah, these guys being the Top Split, seems like the little bit of more room that we have here at Homestead compared to last week definitely pays off for the product of racing that we're seeing put on display, guys. Long green flag runs here, everybody giving each other room, being respectful, at least if they're not doing it, it looks like it on the screen. So a shout out to all these guys for the talent that they're putting on display. The lead now down to 1.3 seconds as we go on board with our leader. We see that 10 of Donovan Strauss getting bigger and bigger on the screen, guys.
This is going to be very, very fun to watch in the final laps. 24 to go last time by the stripe, and we could have as many as 4 trucks going at it before the end of this one. 111 laps now up on the board, and I think the driver that we all have to watch maybe more than anything, Ryan Doucette in the 16 has done a masterful job tonight of being his fastest right at the end of the green flag run, and he has really in 4th place cut that gap down. He's only 2 seconds back, and I think lurking, just waiting for Jordi Lopez to come back to them.
Yeah, it's Lopez right now out in front by basically 1.2 seconds. Then it's 1.9 seconds back to Daniel Roper, and he's got Ryan Doucette about a truck length back behind him in that yellow number 16 Chevrolet, as he and Doucette, Roper and Doucette that is, starting to kind of play that cat and mouse game like we saw them play at the end of that second run as we work here on lap number 113. Those two closing in as well on Donovan Strauss as he continues to get bigger in front of them. There starts to be a heck of a battle here for second as we work off of turn number 4.
Shout out to our friends over at iRacing for the raid, guys. We appreciate that very much. Hope you guys had a great broadcast tonight. We see the battle heating up at the front, guys, down to less than a second now.
Yeah, I want to give a call real quick while we have a second for those who are tuning in to our broadcast of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro from Homestead Miami Speedway, and a congratulations to the proverbial king, if you will, Ty Majeski, for picking up the win in the Leaf Filter Replacement Series event in the street stock at Myrtle Beach Speedway tonight. Double overtime from what I understand, but Majeski coming out on top of that one for his first Replacement Series win. So congratulations to Ty. And if you thought that was a barn burner, we may yet see one heck of a barn burner here in Miami before it's over. 20 laps to go, and the top 4 are squeezing closer and closer together. Jordi Lopez, who was the first of the leaders to pit during the final round of green flag pit stops about 25 laps ago, may now be seeing the consequences of that decision. He leads by 3/4 of a second over a hard-charging Donovan Strauss, Daniel Roper, Ryan Doucette, who I'm going to argue, Ryan Kent, maybe in the catbird seat. Doucette has been the fastest truck among these front 4 the last 5 laps.
Remember that line I mentioned earlier about the Mel Kinnian experience of kind of a little bit of monkey see, monkey do. He's figuring out just how hard he has to push himself. What do I have to do to stay with the trucks of Strauss and Roper, as now Roper takes a look to the inside of Strauss off of turn number 4, and those two start to go to battle for the second spot, and a way swing down low right there for Strauss, and he's going to let both Roper and Doucette go around him for second, this time into turn number 1 and 2. That battle for second's been the best one probably we've seen all day, certainly the most consistent one, as they are all now within 1 second of your leader, Jordy Lopez.
Yeah, Ryan Bauer, that looked like Donovan Strauss giving up the ghost and basically realizing there was no way he was going to hold Roper and Doucette off any longer. And if that's the case, the battle for the win may come down to the 12 and the 16 before this.
Yeah, not surprised by that. Sometimes, you know, when you have to get out of the throttle, you lose all that momentum. And we see Doucette doing everything he can as he's been working his way further and further towards the front as the night goes on, guys. We're on board with our leader. That gap now down to a little bit over 0.7 of a second. Last lap, the drivers were all in the top 4, all within a 1/10 of a second of each other. So we're just going to have to see if these 2nd through 4th guys can stay in line and work together and see if they can catch Lopez at the front.
This is where, if you're Jordy Lopez and you've got anything left in those tires, you've got to be pushing them to the limit right now. And I can promise you, the longer this run goes on, Ryan Kent, those tires are going to be screaming underneath you because of all the tire wear here at Homestead, Miami. This is going to be the longest green stint of the night for any of these front runners, even the ones that tried to split it relatively evenly. This is going to be where everything they've got is put to the test.
Here with about 15 laps to go, as that lead is now inside 0.6 of a second for Jordy Lopez in the 25 truck. Things are getting tight in terms of guys working their way through this later stretch of the race. These are some of those lessons, especially early on. You've only gotten a couple cracks at this, of seeing how your truck is in terms of letting the fuel run out of it and letting tires wear off. And now it's time to put those lessons to learn. We talked about a little, trick up the sleeve, and I think, as you mentioned, that Ryan Doucette may have the biggest bag of tricks of them all.
So Ryan Doucette now closes in within 0.6 of a second of race leader Jordy Lopez, but it's Daniel Roper between Doucette and Lopez in the 2nd spot. Roper, a win tonight, Bauer, would be redemption for that 12 truck after how Rockingham went 2 weeks ago. He felt he should have been the one in victory lane. Contact on a restart ended up with Roper crashing out. Boy, he would like nothing more than to show that that speed, that pace was not a fluke if he could pull off a win here this evening.
Yeah, with an I rating of 7,318, there's no doubt about his talent and abilities, and sometimes just bad luck is part of racing, but it's nice to see Daniel have a nice recovery and running the autism awareness on his truck. I know it is Autism Awareness Month, so it's nice to see that being brought forward. As we see Doucette's going to be looking possibly to the inside here as they're battling for that 2nd position as we're getting down close to it here, guys. Going to be 12 to go.
I really believe that Ryan Doucette may be in the catbird seat because he's been able to just ride behind Roper and save maybe even a little bit more of those tires for the very end of this run. It is 12 laps to go. That time by the stripe, we have been green all the way through 123 laps. It is 4 trucks right now battling for the race win at Homestead, Miami. Jordy Lopez in the 44 out in front. Daniel Roper, the 12 in 2nd. Ryan Doucette, the 16 in 3rd. The 51 of Donovan Strauss in 4th. It is a truck length between 1st and 2nd, a truck length between 2nd and 3rd, and that advantage that was once 3 seconds for Jordy Lopez, that is now gone. He's got Daniel Roper all over the back bumper of the 44. It's a race for the lead down the back straightaway.
We see the top 4 trucks about under a very large blanket now. Not surprised to see the different strategies and the guys saving their tires. How much of a difference that's really going to come into play here. As you can see how much wheel Daniel's got in it there. He's able to turn down under Lopez now. Has to get back up in line. That momentum that Lopez carried on the top side paid off that time. So we'll see if that continues as we're now down to 10 to go, guys.
It's a game of inches, 10 laps to go. They work through 1 and 2. A half lane lower is Daniel Roper. Jordy Lopez trying to carry a little bit of momentum. They race down the back straightaway. I think Lopez may have tagged the wall. It looked like it. If he didn't, you couldn't have put a piece of paper between that 44 and the outside barrier, but he holds on to it now. Top 3, nose to tail. Strauss a car length back. Ryan Kent, when do you make your move and how do you do it?
Well, Lopez is pushing that truck to the absolute limit. You have to think if you're going to take a shot, it might come with 7 or 8 laps to go, because at that point, if you get your momentum killed, you've at least got a couple more laps to maybe take a shot at him with 1 or 2 laps to go, or maybe coming out of turn 4, coming and seeing the checkered flag. Maybe this is Roper's chance right here as he peaks low and then pulls back into turn number 3. Goes a little bit higher on the entry to arc the curve into 3 and 4. Doucette that time entered a little bit lower in that yellow Chevrolet. They work their way now down the front stretch, and Lopez still your leader into turn number 1. As Jacob Seelman mentioned, your top 3 all within just a couple of truck lengths here with inside 10 to go.
It's almost as if Roper's sizing him up, isn't it, Ryan Bauer? Just kind of lurking here for a couple laps and figuring out where the smartest point to make the move.
Yeah, definitely need to set up something like a pass like that. Definitely momentum track. As the run gets on further and further, these guys are having a hard time cutting from the center of the corner off. I think that's what's causing Roper that issue, that little bit of dirty air coupled with the fact that he's been driving it so hard this late in the run. I think that's paying to Lopez's benefit at this point, as we have not seen him get even up to his door yet, Jacob. So that's going to be interesting to see as we get down now with 6 to go at the stripe this time. 4 trucks under a blanket.
If they do get side by side, I think it's going to be game over for Lopez. I think his best hope is going to be to keep these guys behind him. 4 trucks. Here comes Strauss looking to the outside. Doucette throws the block. That's the battle for 3rd. Up front, maybe the run this time. Roper took the look, falls back into line. Ryan Kent, 6 to go in turn.
As they work their way to the bottom side of turn number 1 and 2. It's the red 44 of Jordy Lopez, followed by the black 12 of Roper. In the rearview mirror, him, Ryan Doucette, and the yellow 16 and 3rd, then Donovan Strauss in 4. Your top 1 through 4 runners are all within just a couple truck lengths. This time into turn number 3 and 4. Lopez looks to pull a little bit more of an advantage, up towards about 0.2 of a second that last time by, and I'm not sure that Ryan Doucette, as the last couple of times off turn number 4, he started to get a little bit wiggly. He's not quite able to keep as close to Roper as he was earlier on in the run.
As I look at this now, Ryan Bauer, I have to wonder if Jordy Lopez didn't snooker all of us and basically let that 3-second lead evaporate and save the tires for this exact moment right here to be able to hold the hounds at bay. 4 laps to go when they come back to the line, and Lopez, if he wins this race, I'm going to ask him what he was saving, because I really didn't think he was going to be able to hold him off. He's done it so far.
Yeah, it's been an impressive run by Lopez. Looked like he was the one that did the best job getting on and off pit road. He does have those 3-lap older tires than the 2 behind him, as they're right there on his back bumper down the back straightaway. I mean, it really looks like they get up close to him and then they just get in that dirty air and they just can't do anything about it. So keep an eye, although, on the number 16 machine of Doucette, as would not expect to see, would not be surprised to to see fireworks from him as we're down to 3 laps to go.
Well, it's going to be fun. If you're Daniel Roper sitting in second on the last lap, you're not content to run there, Ryan Kent, are you? So how deep do you drive it into turn 3 to take a stab at?
Well, my friends, as they quoted once, the movie Rubbin' is Racing, son, and I'd imagine that we might see door panels start to go as they close in on a lap truck. This might change things just a little bit, as well as your leaders, top 1 through 4, just about nose to tail into turn number 3 and 4. I'm sure that lap truck will play right into their hands and try to get out of the way, but see if somebody, as they're going to catch them here on the entrance to turn number 1, potentially change things up here just a little bit, as Roper is right on the rear deck lid of Lopez as they exit turn number 2.
A lap and a half to go. And that's Carson Hocevar, who almost he may have gotten into the outside wall trying to avoid the leaders, gets far out of the throttle. That was almost more nerve-wracking because of how slow, Ryan Bauer, he was coming through the corner as we're coming.
Yeah, coming around to the white flag this time. This is Roper's opportunity. Keep an eye on that yellow 16 machine of Ryan Doucette. What's he going to do? If those guys get side by side, we could see a loss of momentum, and that could allow that 16 machine to leapfrog these two, as we see Lopez still able to maintain that lead now, half of a truck length as they come off turn 2 and down the back straightaway, Jacob.
Back straightaway for the final time, and we talked about turn 3. If Roper's got anything left, he's got to show it right here, right now. Jordy Lopez for Horizon takes it into turn number 3. Roper tries to go a little bit lower. Lopez throws the block. Top 3 under a blanket, but it's not going to be enough. Off turn 4, make it 2 wins in 3 races. Jordy Lopez dominates Homestead Miami and wins the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Top Split event tonight in South Florida. Daniel Roper second, Ryan Doucette third, Donovan Strauss and Andrew Freenage the rest of the top 5.
What an impressive performance from the number 44 of Jordy Lopez. Not surprised to see that with the level of talent that driver has, but like we said earlier tonight about Doucette, when you're hot, and that's definitely come show for the 44 of Lopez as he's able to bring her home P1 tonight.
Ryan Kent, takeaways from that.
Trying to catch my breath just a little bit. Those last 20 laps, as Lopez is going to start to line up those rear Goodyears. Man, I thought that maybe Strauss would have something. Maybe if he learned something there late, that he wanted to lay back and settle behind Roper and Doucette, who had been such a good combo. I would have really liked to see Doucette, and maybe he didn't have enough. Maybe he didn't feel that he had enough, but it seemed like he was faster than Roper, especially as we watched them work their way in that battle for third and then the battle for second. But ultimately, Doucette is going to come home in that third spot. But a great run for him from starting back at 14th to climb his way onto a podium finish. I thought it was going to be a move for Doucette there late on Lopez. That was going to allow him to maybe make a run at the win. But ultimately, it's going to be Roper coming home in second with Doucette right behind him.
So Jordy Lopez gets the job done. Roper, Doucette, Strauss, Freenage, the rest of the top 5, as we will get ready to hopefully catch up with a couple of our top runners, but at the very least, run down the full field results here in a couple of minutes. Before we do that, however, and as Jordy Lopez celebrates a win in Miami, we'll step aside and be back with post-race coverage from round 3 of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro from Homestead, Miami in just a couple of minutes. Stand by. We resume in just a moment.
Coming up to the line, being chased, and it was Braden Johnson. Unbelievable finish. It was 1/1000th of a second between them.
Green flag in the air. We are racing in the 2020 24 Hours of Daytona.
They go door to door for the feature race lead here on the last lap of the race. Side by side for the race lead in the final corner at Homestead.
Down the back straightaway, 3 wide again for the race lead. This is unbelievable stuff here tonight.
Loma is going to have to be very deep on the brakes, and he is very deep on the brakes. It's side by side through the corner. This is for the win.
It'll be side by side. Davies low, Ottinger high. To the very inside is Garrett Lowe. 4 wide at the stripe. For all he's worth here on this outside line, neck and neck. Who's going to back out? Does anyone back out? Verstappen starts to squeeze on the inside, and now he'll try and straight line it. Goes under the apron. Drag race to the line. It's so close to call.
Welcome back to the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway as we start to wrap up coverage of round 3 of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro from Homestead Miami Speedway, and a clinic at the end. Jordy Lopez, Daniel Roper, Ryan Doucette, Donovan Strauss, and Andrew Freenage. The top 5 as we take you down the full field results. Jarrett Liebert, 6th, 7th to Brandon McKissick, 8th to Dylan Jones, 9th to Jacob Hall tonight, and completing the top 10, Ryan Kent, was Alan Bowes.
Sorry guys, Mike's muted this whole time. So as you see there, your 11th through 20th finishers tonight, our early race leader Cody Bias in that 14 machine's got to be disappointed after showing so much speed and potential earlier, Jacob, to be relegated all the way back to a 16th place finish.
Yeah, very, very tough. We'll continue to roll down through the order quickly. 11th through 20th: the Merchant, Ruckman, Bordeaux, Wilson, Boulos, Bias, Justice, Maines, Bryant, and Mallet. 21st tonight, Dylan Rafferty. 22nd, Trayton Lapsevich, Brian Blackford. 23rd, Will Norton. 24th, Carson Hosevar. 25th, 26th, Casey Tucker. Blake McCann was 27th after an issue on the pit stop, didn't get fuel and had to repit. Devin Curl, 28th, 11 laps down. The rest of these trucks either many laps down or out of the race. Briar LaPrade, 29th. 30th, Ryan Kuhn. 31st, Brad Mahar. 32nd, Daniel Williamson. Justin Trombley, 33rd. James Milbachler in 34th. And I think we at least have one of our top 3, so we'll see if we can't, just for a minute, grab Ryan Doucette and see if we can't get a word with him. Finished 3rd tonight, and we've been talking about him for a couple of weeks now with his impressive job as he's done. See if we can't talk to our 3rd place man, Ryan Doucette. Jacob Seelman, Ryan Bauer, Ryan Kent in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
How about that? It's not a win, but I'm curious for you because you were arguably the fastest truck among the front runners in the closing laps. Once you guys got to Jordy, what were you?
Well, I really didn't expect Jordy to be able to hang on there. I thought he was going to fall off with how early he was pitting, but he did a great job of hanging on to the lead, and congrats to him on the win. And my main concern really was getting by Daniel once he passed me, because I know we were probably the most even in pace out of anyone in the field, and I just burned my stuff up a little bit too much on the last run. It's just, you got to be so precise every single lap, and the rest of those runs early in the race, I had someone else in front of me kind of as a pacemaker, but that run, it was just kind of up to me, and burned off the right rear just a little bit too much to make any moves there at the end.
Is it tough or is it fun as a driver when you get a race like this where it runs green the entire way at a track like Miami, where you really do have to manage and pace your tire wear over the course of a long run?
It's really difficult, but at the same time, I love that style of racing because there's no surprises. It's just pure speed and skill, and at that point, everything just falls into the setup and driver's hand.
For you, a win last race out. Right now, a 3rd tonight should put you in very, very solid position in the points. Is there any point as we get deeper into the season that you can start to feel comfortable, or is every race a new battle, knowing that one misstep in this series could drop you right out of that transfer of the time?
Well, I'm still a little worried about the couple of road courses, and I think there's one more super speedway on the schedule. But aside from that, if I can just get consistent top 20s even with these 2 top 3 finishes in a row, I think I'm almost locked in at that point. It and hopefully no bad luck comes my way.
Before we let you go, Ryan, obviously it's been a strong couple of weeks. Sponsors, shout outs, thank yous. Who makes it happen for you and the whole crew here on the Road to Pro?
A huge shout out to all the guys at Nexus, Jacob Hall, Jarrett Liebert, James Wenzel, all the guys that put so much time into this, building these setups and giving me a truck that handles good enough to get these great finishes. My real life crew, they've been supporting me in pretty much all my online racing recently. And you guys for broadcasting this and getting Road to Pro out there. I know in the past years it hasn't really been broadcasted, but thank you guys for doing that. I really appreciate it. And wish I could say more, but a little bit less, a little lack of sponsors.
Well, I would say that you keep running like this and the sponsorship should come, Ryan. Congratulations on a solid podium run, and we will look forward to seeing you here in a couple of weeks when we get back.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
That's Ryan Doucette, who comes home with a top 3 run here tonight, and we will see if we can't exchange him out for tonight's race winner, who we're talking to now for the second time in 3 races, Jordy Lopez. I said I was going to ask the question when you got in here. Was that a game of letting the lead evaporate and saving your tires early to be able to hold them off late, or were you nervous when they were running you down the last few laps? Because the strategic tire management over the course of that last run, we were enjoying watching it up in the booth.
Well, I was saving like a little bit, man, but I honestly cannot say that I wasn't pushing at all either, because I was honestly just trying to just build a comfortable gap so that way it wouldn't be that close. But I don't know what happened, but they were right on me, and I had to hit like 10 perfect laps. I mean, I couldn't like get loose off the corner. It was just like very close to call. And but yeah, man, the set was really good on the long run, man. So like I was able to like hold them off, especially on drive off, which like saved me from being passed.
I was going to ask you about that, because it did look like getting off the corner and the run down the straightaway, you were as strong as anybody all night.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I'm psyched.
2 wins in the first 3 races. You've got a right to be. I asked Doucette, I'll ask you the same question. When you get off to such a strong start as you have here, is there any point in this Road to Pro, with it only being 14 races, that you can feel safe in the position that you're in, basically leading the points, leaving here and having the runs that you've had? Or do you have to treat every week as a must win or a must finish well, knowing that how many good guys are in this trying to get into top 20?
Well, me personally, I like to treat each race as like go all or like nothing. Because honestly, I'm not trying to fall back on points regardless. So each race I'm gonna treat with a bunch of practice every time, and just keep trying to get top 5s, top 10s, or like even wins, man. It's all about trying to have a strong finish in this series going into the Pro Series.
I know we wait a couple weeks before we get back at it, but at least hitting a couple of the 1.5 miles hard here for the first part of the season. 2 weeks we're at Atlanta. Can you that's another tire eater. Can you replicate this performance tonight out?
With enough practice, I should be able to run fine. I can't thank my team enough, man. They work hard on these trucks week in and week out, so I would not be here without Horizon, man. They're like a great group of guys.
I know the whole Horizon team, it looked like, was pretty strong tonight. Jordy, any other shout outs, sponsors, thank yous that you need?
Well, them, Matt Danson for the amazing truck that like he painted me, and just like the whole team, man. They work really hard to like make these sets like the best, and like I can't thank them enough. I would not have thought to be leading the points at this moment. It's so surreal, man.
Well, certainly we've enjoyed watching you, and you've put on a heck of a show in the first couple of races of this season. 3 of 14 done, but as we mentioned, Jordy, still 11 to go, and we know you'll be there. Congratulations. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
That's Jordy Lopez, who picks up his second win to open the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro season. And Ryan Bauer, I'll turn to you first. Production and on-air talent tonight. So we got to multitask you a little bit, but I think we saw a really enjoyable race. And to see 4 trucks under a blanket coming down in those final laps, it was really enjoyable to see the strategy play out. No cautions and no restarts to worry about, but still a lot of excitement.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Shout out to these drivers for keeping it clean and keeping it green. It's always exciting to see the different strategies play out. I know as an iRacer myself, when you have that long run speed, it's frustrating when the caution comes out. So the guys, it definitely paid off for Lopez tonight. We say, like you said, 2 out of 3 wins so far for Lopez. Definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with. The chat calling him the GOAT, and yeah, it's definitely been he's definitely been the GOAT this season. We'll see if he can continue to come out on top. We take a look at the rest of the schedule, Jacob, and next week we're going to be, or I should say the next time we race, which will be 2 weeks from tonight, we coming to you from Hotlanta. So that's on April 21st. It's going to be live here at 9 o'clock Eastern on the Podium Esports Twitch channel at twitch.tv/Podium Esports. And got to be excited about Atlanta as we look to that next time we get together in 2 weeks.
Absolutely. Atlanta next on the schedule, and beyond that, we go to the Roval coming up in May, and Michigan on May 19th. So Atlanta, the Roval, and Michigan, the next 3 rounds for Road to Pro, and probably 3 of the most diverse tracks that I can think of for a 6-week stretch. Ryan Kent, your first time in the Podium Esports broadcast booth tonight, and I know we kind of threw you to the wolves a little bit, but first off, we appreciate you being here. What were your impressions on tonight's race, and thoughts on what you saw?
Well, to put it in racers terms, after my engine wouldn't start for about the first 30 laps of the race, I wasn't too bad after that point. Was able to log some laps and get some experience. But no, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for allowing me onto this. As an iRacer myself, I have a lot of respect and a lot of admiration for these guys, because I have a tough time putting 10 laps together without hitting the wall. So for these guys to be able to put together 130 plus, cleaning green and get into pit road correctly and everything else is a testament to how good that these guys are at this craft, and to be able to enjoy this, especially during this time, was a pretty good time for me. So I enjoyed a fantastic race between the top 4. Those guys certainly could have dirtied each other up there, could have used each other up there late, but did not, and put on a great race. And so a big salute to those guys, and congratulations to the winner tonight, and Mr. Lopez.
So a couple of things to shout out before our time draws to a close. Of course, Wednesday, 8 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. We've got the World of Outlaws iRacing Invitational, the second edition of that, live on Fox Sports 1. Adam Alexander, Jeff Gordon, Clint Boyer, John Gibson on the call. Of course, just before that at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC Sports Network, it's the final round of the NBC Esports Short Track iRacing Challenge that will lock 2 more drivers into Thursday night's finale. Of course, Thursday, the finale to the NBC Esports Short Track iRacing Challenge, also at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN. 9 p.m. on Thursday night, another of the Pro Invitationals, the second round of the USAC iRacing Challenge Pro Invitational. That can be seen over on flowracing.com. Friday night, April 10th, we've got the first edition of the Subaru iRacing Rallycross All-Star Invitational, which goes green at 6 p.m. Saturday afternoon, it is IndyCar racing on NBCSN for the IndyCar iRacing Challenge from Michigan International Speedway. That's at 2:30 before the eShort Course World Cup presented by Jim Beaver Esports at 6 p.m. And then, of course, Easter Sunday, there is no eNASCAR iRacing Pro Invitational event this week, but there will be on 2 weeks, the 19th of April from Richmond Raceway. So we look forward to that. Of course, as Ryan Bauer mentioned, the next broadcast for eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro April 21st from Atlanta Motor Speedway. We look forward to seeing all of you in the viewing audience back there. But right now, we get ready to close things out tonight for Podium Esports. So for Gary Sexton, John Theodore, and Cisco Scaramouza at Podium Esports, our producer Ryan Bauer, of course our headman James Pike, for my partner in the booth, Ryan Kent Jr., I'm Jacob Seelman. Thank you for watching tonight's broadcast of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro, and congrats to Jordy Lopez. 2 wins in 3 starts. He'll try to make it 3 for 4 in 2 weeks from Atlanta. Till we meet again.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in tonight. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you. We'll be back tomorrow night live here on Twitch on the ERL channel for the Anthony Alfredo's Esports Racing League. So look forward to that coverage tomorrow night. I believe that's at 7 Eastern. So thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on the track.